What's up everybody, welcome back to the studio, where once again we are making a Vegas strip friendly and Sew Yeah exclusive pattern, the glitter quilt. Let's get started. This quilt I think is really pretty. This pattern I really like because it is very distinct. It's not wild or goofy. It's obviously more of a modern pattern, but it stands out, which I really appreciate. One other thing I like about this quilt is it is very versatile. As you can see, the one we have on display right here is a Redworks quilt, and it does everything that a Redworks quilt does, and it does it very well. However, you change up your fabrics, and you can get a lot of different contrast with this. But for the example, I'm gonna be using Botanic Blast, which you're gonna see is going to give it a completely different look. And the more you change it up, the more you make it your own, the better in my book. Now, in this quilt, there's gonna be a lot of cutting to make this block. So that being said, we'll go through the dimensions and everything as we go step by step, just to try and keep it simple. The full pattern is free, linked down in the description below. We're gonna start off by making the corners of this block. Now to make this, you're going to need fabric that is cut down to the following dimensions. I have my main fabric cut down to 2.5 inches square, and then I have my background fabric cut down here in my different dimensions. The first thing I'm gonna do is I am going to line up all my pieces so I can see what I'm doing. There we go. Obviously you're gonna have this times 4 for all 4 corners. First thing we're gonna do, we're gonna put our main print right sides together with our background fabric. We're gonna sew these together, and then we'll press them and sew them to this bigger piece here. Now, like I said, we're gonna take our piece, put it right sides together with our bigger piece. Now we've got our corners done. This block is a little bit unusual, not difficult by any means, it just uses this fabric very wisely. With this block right here, we have our corner piece, which we just made. We have our center block, which we're gonna make right now. So we've got corner, center, corner, corner, center, corner. Typically what you would do is you would have a center square, and you would be making these blocks to go all the way around it. This one is slightly different. This center piece, which is actually this piece here is all one piece, which is kind of a cool way to do this. Now to make our center block, we're gonna do a couple different steps. First off, we're gonna make a flying goose. Dimensions are in the pattern. There's a million tutorials on how to make a flying geese. You know what? This is now the official terminology. If it's one, it's a flying goose. If you're making a quilt, it's a flying geese quilt because that term is already established. We know that. Now we have this piece here, which we are now going to take a couple smaller squares, and we're going to use 2.5 inch squares instead of the normal 3.5 inch ones, and we're going to make a fat goose. This is now the new terminology because I don't think it actually exists for anything other than the standard piecing. So now instead of using a square that is the same width as your main piece of fabric, we're going to use a 2.5 inch square on our 3.5 inch wide, which is going to give us this right here, which is called a fat goose. You heard it here first, that's what we're calling it, fat goose. Singular, flying goose. The entire quilt, flying geese quilt. This one, fat goose. Now that we've settled that, we're gonna sew this thing together. Now I'm making my fat goose. Got my fabric, which I'm just gonna lay into the corners, right sides together. Then we're gonna mark on this corner to corner. Now we're gonna sew this on right down the center on that line. With that done, we're going to put a 1/4 inch seam allowance on that. So now we got our flying goose, got our fat goose. We're gonna take these, right sides together. Okay. And there you go. Now, as I mentioned, normally when you're making a quilt like this, you would have a center square that is a separate piece and a block going around the edge to make your pattern. However, with this, we're using a Vegas strip, and Vegas strips have been designed specifically to show off the beautiful fabric that you purchased. For this piece right here, we have our full 6.5 inch wide Vegas strip, and all we've done is taken a little 2.5 inch square and snowballed the edges. We're gonna mark our square down the center, and when we're doing this, we're sewing right on that line, if I didn't mention that. Now that we have that done, we're going to take a couple of our flying geese that we previously made. We're going to add those one onto each end. Now that we have our center piece assembled, it's time to finish the block. And here we have all of our pieces in place, ready to finish this thing up. Gonna assemble my pieces into 3 strips, and then we'll sew those strips together. Now, real quick, before I finish assembling this block, if you could do me a huge favor and hit that like button and subscribe to our channel, I would hugely appreciate it. That tells YouTube you like what you're seeing, and it helps get Sew Yeah's content pushed out to other people who are looking for a little quilting inspiration. So please, take 1 second, hit that like button, and subscribe. Now, that being said, we're gonna finish assembling this thing. And there you have it. Our first block is finished and it is looking fantastic. And as you can see, much different look than the quilt behind me. Also, if you were to take a really light colored main fabric and put it on, say, black or a dark gray, invert the color scheme, it would also be stunning. That's all for today, everybody. Hope you enjoyed this. If you did, the pattern is free down in the description below, as well as a link to all of our Vegas strips on our website, and also a link to our upcoming retreat. There are a few slots left, so please check that out. We would love to see you there. My name is Zach, teaching you how to sew like a pro, and we'll see you next time here at Sew Yeah Quilting.